Welcome to MediaHub. In this episode, we're joined by Bruce Lankford, a seasoned creative producer and writer who's helped shape some of the most dynamic live experiences in the industry. From his start as a project coordinator to leading creatives for major events, Bruce shares what it takes to design with purpose and impact. Let's dive in. Bruce Lankford, thank you so much for joining us on MediaHub, man. Me and you've been talking back and forth, and you're finally here, and I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to be here. I've seen a few people on the show that I'm familiar with, and I was just jealous that I wasn't on when they were on. So lucky me, I finally made it. I made it to the big time.
Well, dude, for real, we're going to have fun today, me and you. It's been a long time since me and you had a long conversation. But check it out. So this season, we started a new thing called Quick Takes, and it's to get our viewers to know who our guest is on the show. So I'm going to throw you some questions. They're this or that type of answers, and then we're going to go through them as fast as possible, okay?
Let's do it.
Quick Takes.
All right, here we go. Bruce, so story first or visual first?
Story first.
All right. Concept deck or mood board?
It's tough. I'm gonna say mood board.
Okay, all right. PowerPoint deck or bold visual storytelling?
Bold visual storytelling.
I so know you. Here we go. Script writing or show flow building?
Script writing.
All right. Start with a blank slate or a strict brief?
Oh, blank slate. Every time.
All right. Okay. Brand guidelines or creative freedom?
What I want is creative freedom, but what we all need is brand guidelines. Always.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough.
Gotta have a box.
Rehearsed to perfection or live in spontaneity?
Rehearsed with spontaneity.
You're asking for trouble there, bro. That's going off the cuff like I am right now. The editors are going to kill me. Here we go. Big idea buy-in or small creative wins?
Big idea buy-in.
Okay. Client collaboration or team brainstorms?
Client collaboration.
Okay. Emotional impact or the wow factor?
Emotional impact.
Emotional impact. I knew you. Lighting cues or video moments?
Oh man, that's good. That's a good. You might stop me on that one, bro. I gotta tell you. How could you have one without the other? Video moments.
Absolutely. What'd you say?
I said video moments. But I don't.
Okay. Picture's worth 1,000 words, man. Here we go.
Exactly.
Early call time or the late night strike?
Early call time.
Early call time. Okay. Creative pitch meeting or tech rehearsal?
Creative pitch meeting.
Writing the script or calling the cues?
Writing the script.
All right, a couple more. Here we go. Post-show recap or post-show nap?
Post-show recap. Every time. Okay. Wake up.
This one I need to know for you for sure. Control freak or go with the flow?
Oh, control freak.
I so know you.
Quick Takes.
Well, dude, that was fun doing those quick takes with you. I still know you a lot. That's good. Hey, even though I haven't seen you in a long time, it's like, we get back together. It's like picking right where we left off.
Absolutely, man. But you're right. You know me. I mean, and it doesn't change. It's probably only gotten worse or better.
Oh, man. Okay. So, Bruce, like we just said, I know you, but our viewers don't. Just give the viewers a little hint of some of the big names that you have been working with in your career.
Sure. From a brand standpoint, I can call out names that are as big as Sony and Oracle. All the familiar brands. I'll say I don't think I've worked with most Forbes 50 type companies. Your Microsofts, your Apples, both as consultant, as producer, etc. From a people standpoint, I've worked with an array of talent, whether they are musical talent or they're CEOs. And I hate giving actual names because it feels like, like name dropping kind of deal. But I'll just say, most of the presidents, and that's like a lot of us in the industry of the nation, except for like current, as well as large, like I said, big CEOs and that sort of thing, as well as the largest
Okay.
private equity firm in the world.
You're being very modest, man. I'm gonna help you out here. Okay. I'll do it for you since I threw it to you and you didn't do it. So I'm gonna
Deal.
say,
I'll
so
shake my head.
tell these people you've traveled with Tom Joyner,
Yes.
syndicated show all over the country for decades, right?
Yes.
How long were you with Tom Joyner show?
I was with him full time for about 4 years, but I was doing like part time though. I don't know, it's almost a decade.
Okay. All right. And then the other big name that has been one of the most influential pastors out there, TD Jakes. How long were you with TD Jakes and what did you do for TD Jakes?
So I was with TD Jakes for about 5 years. I was his executive producer for his TDJ Enterprises and for his Potter's House and TD Jakes Ministries. I was his executive of events.
So being with those people, right? You've worked in the in-house AV teams, big corporate events, TD Jakes, Tom Joyner show. How did each one of those experiences shape you differently?
Oh yeah. So I'll tell you, like my starting time really was in-house. I'd come off of working in film and television, really at a small scale, and then moved into doing in-house audio visual. And during that time, the biggest thing I learned was customer service. Because even back then, and we're going way back to like the late 90s, back then in-house teams had a better opportunity, I'll say, to win business. But at the same time, there were still other companies out there who could probably do it a little bit better, et cetera. That said, it all came down to how can I serve the customer, the client, how can I get to know them and understand their wants and needs? And that stuck with me throughout the entirety of my career. When we move into other large organizations or things that are a little unique, like we'll say a Tom Joyner who is doing, a festival for 15,000 people or doing a cruise for 5,000 people, whatever those things may be, or just sky shows in various places. Then it comes down to learning how to be flexible, right?
Yeah.
And still being able to deliver the same quality no matter where you are to a broadcast audience as well as a live audience. And I think, that's where I really kind of sowed my seed when it came to understanding your own standard, always having a standard of your own. I mean, I was always a little high strung. We both know that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Making sure we hit the right notes, but it was super important, of course, because now you have advertisers who, mistakes, can cause people to change the channel, whether that's radio or whether that's, TV. So I had to be really cognizant of the details and ensuring that we had a smooth flow. And I've carried that with me as well. And TD Jakes is no different. You're talking about someone who I remember we would have their board meetings and we would have everyone in the room from, major studios and networks to book publishers and then the TD Jakes team. And, when everyone turns to you and they say, including Bishop, and says, okay, what's the plan? These are moments where you can't fail. So there's, I don't just teach rehearsal. I rehearse myself to ensure that I'm missing, I'm not missing any of the points, and that we don't have, we have fewer opportunities for mistakes. We can mitigate as much risk as possible.
Right, man. I'm sure in all those areas that you worked in, it's all about rolling up your sleeves and getting, especially when someone comes and tells you, so what's the plan? You better have a plan and get ready to go. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. A plan and a backup plan.
Exactly. All right. So you started as a project coordinator, and I think you even did a little bit of sales. Tell me, I don't know if I'm right with that, but
Yes.
What did your early chapter teach you?
Yeah, so just to starting from like project coordination standpoint, you learn very quickly, number one, how valuable the role is. I'm thankful for the moments I had being someone on the ground, even as an AV technician, like being a guy putting down the cables and taping the cables. To this day, I still say I'm one of the best people who are going to tape a cable. I mean, I think I've had that argument before. But that said, it teaches you to really respect every position and every moment, So like, what that does for you is it grows you to the point where you're always considerate of time for every individual on your team, no matter what their role is, as well as really understanding and being empathetic towards their needs. Because, for them, the show's not as important. The event, the experience, it's not as important. They want to do the job well, but they've got 10 other jobs coming up right after you. And it's just a different mindset. So you want to kind of like make sure you're including them in the process the same way. And that's what I learned, because I for the longest time, I wished that I had a bigger say at what was happening. If I could just have my voice heard. So I listen to every single person, no matter their role on my team.
That's great. Not only did you learn empathy, which, like you said, from every role, but at the same time, you were able to know, hey, this is important. You were able to say what or know what was doable and not doable. And if it was a hard thing, because you knew a little bit about everybody's role, you knew like, okay, we need to pay more attention here. We need to really focus in here. That's great. That's great.
Absolutely.
How did you make the transition from managing logistics to leading creative direction?
So it happened organically. I mean, I was more video heavy in like what I knew from a technical standpoint, right? And so I'd come out of doing kind of what we would consider, I guess, in the industry, kind of a V2 engineering role. So I knew the basics of engineering and in and outs, and I was fine with doing camera switches and things like that. But I kind of got dropped into the role of doing technical direction in some ways, so simple like calling cameras and that sort of thing. And then I realized that there were some things that were missing. And so I just started kind of voicing my opinion directly to, of course, not directly to the end client, but just to whomever it was I was working for. And in that, I started just kind of learning more about the business and understanding like what the other person's, the producer's role was. Like that role to me was so mysterious. I was like, they don't really look like they're doing anything. I think a lot of technical folks, they see the producer and they're going to bark orders or they're going to point and but they don't really seem to be doing anything. And so I was always curious about it. And so I started to learn about it, not just because I didn't like the fact that they were telling me to do something I didn't understand. I wanted to know the why behind the what, Yeah. And so that was kind of like that curiosity is what started my path there. And then, I owning my own company kind of forced me into the role, when it comes down to it. Like I had to not only take an interest, but get an understanding of what the client needs were, et cetera, and try and build from there, with really no great mentor initially to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it made you a well-rounded producer, knowing all these other aspects. It puts you way ahead in the producer role for sure, because anything from the pre-production all the way through the show and wrapping out the show, knowing all that, it just makes everything run smoother.
It does. Yeah. And it's
Okay.
funny because I'd probably take that for granted more if I didn't know other great producers who still struggle on certain ends, whether they don't know the way the workflow happens in the pre-side, or on the post side for even video editing, et cetera. I'm blessed to have had the opportunity to really kind of work all those angles first before diving in this way.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask you this. What's the biggest mindset shift someone has to make when moving from technical roles into a creative leadership?
I would say the real mindset shift is you go from understanding the what and the how to making your first priority the why. So, for the longest time, we're kind of programmed to say, okay, we know we're going to have some type of screen in the room, right? And this is just like on the most basic level. We're going to have a way for people to watch stuff, and we're going to have a place for them to sit. So the first question, if you ask yourself, well, why? Why do you have to have those things? Because there's times when there's just a logo on the screen. And if that's the case, is it really worth the spend? Or can I actually put those investment dollars someplace else to make the experience and what the client's objectives are more achievable, make it better? You know what I mean? So I think it just comes down to the big mind shift. And this is huge. This is the point. Why are we doing this? And that's from the very top. Why are we doing the meeting? And it can't be, well, we have to have an annual conference every year. Okay. And even if it is that, okay, why? And so It's an exercise I put a lot of leadership teams through at the highest level. And initially, of course, when they meet me, they're like, who is this guy? But it also makes them evaluate their own process.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the things that's made me most successful is that I'm not here to sell you on equipment. I'm not even here to sell you on a show. I'm here to really help you establish your why for you and your audience. Because once we get there, everyone wins. The leadership
Yeah.
team wins, the organization wins, the employee wins, and the creative agency and production company win.
That question about the why, I really like it. But how many times do you, when you ask the client that question, how many are thrown off by that question? Your percentage wise, is it like 50-50? Like some of them, 50% could answer like this is the why, or
Yeah.
more than that?
I'd say probably it's going to be higher than 50%, probably like 70% are thrown off. But it really boils down to who you're initially talking to.
Yeah.
And, that's a whole nother conversation about, understanding, your client, and who you're talking to. If you're talking to, the company's meeting planner, event planner, then their goal is to save cost, right? You need to be talking to someone in either communications at a VP level or chief marketing officer or head on up that C-suite, chief executive officer, chief operating officer. That's where you'll get the real answers because they're going to tell you why they believe the event's happening. And sometimes the other piece is alignment, where sometimes those goals are aligned. And so your goal, your job, I have to be fearless and have a lot of courage really to ask some hard questions, and not necessarily say, hey, well, your guy said this. I would never do that. But, if I know that the chief marketing officer said one thing and the chief executive officer said something else, even a little off, then I know that we have a potential problem, as we head down the track in the future. And those questions start at the very beginning. Before the contract's even signed, I start asking those questions.
I like that, man, because it is, that phrase, know your audience, because it really depends who you're talking to and ask the right questions to that. Because like you said, you don't want the meeting planner. She's all logistics. It's all logistics, has no idea about the creativity, doesn't care about it. She just wants to make sure everything runs smoothly. So very, very good note there.
That and what wine do you want? What wine? What's the wine you want? They care about that. The wine or the meat? Chicken or steak?
Right. How do you approach writing the concept for a live event experience?
All starts with discovery with the client. And this is one thing that I hear a lot of creative agencies or more creative agencies getting right. Having a discovery interview with the client, no matter how well you know them, no matter how many events you've done, there's always a discovery process for every single event. And that's where it starts because there's always a different why. There's a difference in a sales kickoff meeting versus a brand launch versus an annual conference. And there are specific objectives and things that need to be met for each one of those. So there's typically a mix of the same structure. So we know there's going to be some version of vision casting. There's going to be some version of reporting, et cetera, et cetera. So understanding the why behind it tells me how we go about displaying and giving that information, whether it is, through visuals or whether it's a fireside chat or whether it's a straight presentation, whether it's engagement Q&A or gamification, all these things. It's important for the producer to think about because at the end of the day, our value is beyond being able to put together a show that's like a standard A to B. It's really what do you bring to the table creatively to engage the audience at its highest level and cause the highest and the best impact for maximum engagement. How do I get them to change a behavior, do something different, learn something new? I mean, if you can't do that as a producer, that's where I challenge anyone. That's the value of producing.
Yeah. Especially keeping those clients happy, man, changing it up every year. It's not always doing the same thing, over and
Absolutely.
over. It gets very boring, not only for the client, but also for the people that are attendees, the attendees that are going to these meetings. They want to see something new, especially sometimes they're spending their own money going to these things.
Absolutely. Especially when we talk about user conferences, that's a big one for them. Because now you're talking typically about, they're not quote unquote public. I mean, they're professionals, but they're professionals attending a conference being put on by typically, a software as a service type organization. I won't name any names. And the companies who get it, they bring in amazing speakers. They really put big spend on like moments and experiences and great networking And the companies that don't get it, a lot of times you'll see their leadership team having a grand old time. The numbers are dwindling. The people who are there for the parties only, and the actual meetings are not well attended, and it's commonplace.
Yeah, yeah. So with all this that you said, what would be your favorite event that you were a part of from conception to completion?
So I'd say I'll do what's most recent because there's a lot of good ones. But I think, to kind of consider like within the last, I'll just say like year, there's a conference we do that's a franchisee conference. All right. And the big win for me was number one, connecting really well with the CEO and his vision. And what he said to me specifically was, I want my attendees, that being my franchisees, to connect with the why of what we do. I want them to remember why they bought a franchise to begin with, which, I'm like, they don't already? It's like, it's an interesting statement, but the thing is, people buy into a franchise, for example, and they may have some tie to like the why. Like, for example, this particular franchise serves, children. And so you'd think it'd be about like, how do we serve children better and how do we, help them from an education standpoint and grow them. But most of them, it becomes more of a business than anything else, which I can't fault anybody. I mean, you can't really be inspired when your stomach is, hurting from not having food in it. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
So that said, he said, I want to remind them of the why and connect the why to increase their performance for their own sake. So, he and I spent some good time together, and I thought about it, and I came back with kind of an idea of how we do that. And it was basically to come back and show them the voice of a child and a child's imagination in all the things that they do, and move from kind of like how they can impact the child on their journey in life from, their first franchise starting when they take kids in at like 3 or 4 up to when they graduate, and go into college. And that journey and the way we displayed it, we created an opening experience using, massive visuals and lighting cues and even a performer, voiceover, all kinds of, the bells and whistles. And in the end, there were very few, dry eyes, in the actual moment when we ended. And that was at the top of the show. And then we went from that right into his keynote speech. And so it was a great opportunity for him to really tie the why to the vision for the future and expectation. And the reviews were very high. And we saw that people have said that's the best conference that they have attended thus far. And so it was a
Wow.
big win for us.
Wow, man, that's super cool. Very, very cool. It sounds like it ended up being a very cool meeting.
Absolutely.
How do you get the clients that are new to you to trust your vision?
So, 9 times out of 10, just to be really candid, initially, I don't. They have to experience me first. They have to experience, the value. I have to kind of build credibility. And so, what it typically means is, I'm normally giving them a lesser costly show, I'll say, and we're delivering. I don't really give away stuff for free because I don't believe in it. Just overall. But what I do believe in is showing as much value as possible when they probably have not seen it before. And here's a great example of that. I had a client who, even though we were still, more expensive than most, but they still weren't paying like top dollar. But simple things like when they heard us do music for people walking in, they were blown. Why would you do that? That's amazing. I can't believe. And we said, well, we had VOGs set up for them for their intros, and it just changed everything. And so we went from, them being skeptical and really wanting us from a production capability standpoint to wanting to know more about what we could do for them. And that was the beginning. And of course, now they use, our entire creative suite of services. We do a mix of both writing, graphic design work, kind of media shoots, the whole nine, all in the same thing. And now they listen very carefully when we say, let's talk about your why. And they know the question's coming. That's the one thing. All my clients know the question's coming. Oh God. All right, it's fine. Let's just get it over with. They're like, absolutely. So let's talk about your why. But once they see the results from that, then there's no going back. So winning that initial kind of, winning them over initially, it's a little tougher. So we've kind of figured out some ways to get around those barriers of entry. And I understand because there's so many companies out there that are vying for the business, kind of thing. But I'm a relationship guy overall. I don't believe in transactional anything. So I say, if we got to start small, let's start small and show them the possibilities of how great their vision can be.
Yeah. Years ago, dude, and this, you don't even know it stuck in my head, but when we first met a long time ago, you had told me, Dondi, don't even talk the money yet until you sell them on the vision.
Yes.
And then you bring the money in. I never forgot that since you first told me that. You probably don't even know how much it impacted me, but it did.
I had no idea. That's awesome, dude. I appreciate it. I'm honored to have impacted you in any way, I mean, as successful as you are. But I believe it to the core of who I am. And in fact, I believe that, during that time when we first met, and I had my business there with some other great friends that it was like trying to figure out and this whole thing of owning a business and doing great shows and whatnot. And the one thing that everyone on my team really agreed with was, don't make it about the money, right? Like, don't make it about the money. Make it about the vision. How can we show them that they can dream as big as they want and we can execute, and it's always possible? It's like, if you start at the money, then that's where their mindset is. And we don't want it to be there. We want them to dream, because when people dream, they will go the distance to find additional money. So, so you never start off with saying, well, I've got something and it's this many hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million, whatever. It's always, I've got this vision and here's how it starts. They enter the room, whatever the case may be, right? Give them the vision first, always.
I'm going to switch it up on you a little bit because I want to go back to the people that might be in the industry. We're talking to the people that might be in the industry about 5-7 years. Right?
Ooh.
They're stuck in that technical because that's what they needed to do to break into the industry, right? But their passion, or they're fueled by being on the creative side. That's what they want to do. So what advice would you give to someone trying to move up from the tech role to a producing or creative direction?
Absolutely. So the first thing is the fact that they're in the industry already in any role is huge, because that all can be used to their advantage. The next step is, if they want to move into something that's more creative, then it is all about being curious, like constantly curious. You want to, become a little courageous in asking questions, to those who are above you. If you know people that are already doing what you want to do, then you have to be courageous enough to let them know in a non-invasive way. And this is something, by the way, that I learned only within recent years. I mean, I wasn't great at this, when I was younger either. But I will say, when it comes down to it, what I learned is most people want to talk about themselves. So if you go to someone, am I right?
No, you're 100% right. Look what I did, or this is what I could. Yeah,
exactly. So if you go to someone who's doing what you want to do, and you simply say, hey, I just want to say in the most respectful way possible, I admire what you do, and I just love the opportunity to pick your brain and know more. That's the first step, really, because what you're doing is two things. You're learning, but you're also building a relationship at a different level than more than likely you would have, right? You allow someone also to see you in a different vein, because the truth is, in our industry, it's so easy to get pigeonholed into, this is the audio guy, this is the audio engineer, this is the video engineer, this is the camera guy, here's the lighting designer, but that particular production manager, he may instead want to be a creative director, and he may have everything in him to be that, but he's never let anyone know. And so people can't bless you with anything if they don't know what you need or want. How can I give you something you need if I don't know you need it? So be constantly curious and open your mouth, because closed mouths don't get fed. All right. So that's
a golden nugget right there. I love it. Be boisterous. Share your passions with others. I like it. All right. What skills should up and comers start developing now if they want to start leading projects like you do?
I think you have to first find the part of you, like what do you lean into? For me, it was, I love storytelling and filmmaking and that sort of stuff. So it was really easy for me to lean into the story part of what I do. So I'd first see if your passion connects with the direction you're going. Most times it will. Most times you're either a visual person or you're a writer, et cetera, if you want to move into a creative space. And so you have to figure out, of those few things, what of those kind of moves you forward the fastest? And then learn, take classes. YouTube University is real. Jump on it. Every Udemy, Coursera, like everybody's got some kind of course you can take to get better at what you do, because you don't want to just be the person who's good. You want to be the person who's great. So greatness puts you in demand. If you're good, you're in a sea of, 1,000 other folks, but greatness puts you in demand. So, find whatever your passion is that leads you to where you want to go, whether it's artistic and visuals or whether it's writing. Become the very best at it, because that's how you communicate and share it with the world.
Man, you everything you said was great, but as you're saying that, I've been following your posts lately, and you're to me, you're kind of reinventing yourself a little. I don't know what it is. We'll talk about that off camera. But this video that you posted recently, it's so important it was about collaborations, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you are, how long you've been in the field, if you're a newcomer, if you have 10, 20 years in the industry. You made this video on how important it was about collaboration. So I'm going to play it, and then we're going to talk about it after, right?
Love it.
Let's roll that video.
What's up, y'all? I'm currently in Amsterdam doing some pre-production work for one of my clients. But before I got on the plane, I actually had a conversation with another filmmaker that challenged me. Our goals aligned, and it made me realize that there's just more I want to do for my own creative projects. And on top of that, I see some real opportunities for collaboration between myself and a couple of other production companies that I'm looking forward to working with. But here's the truth. I didn't always value collaboration like I do now. I was raised to really protect what's mine, to the point where I was fearful about what others might take. And because of that, I was blinded to what people could actually pour into our project, my project. So in the spirit of collaboration, now I'm trying to lock in something with even a local-based, I'm trying to say local, I mean an Amsterdam, a local Amsterdam-based production company for when I come back later this year. Something short, something simple, but something that we can actually film while being here, or at least in the days that follow. And the question is why? Why would I want to do that? Well, number one, to show the power of creativity through collaboration, and also number two, to build global relationships for something bigger that my partner Brian and I are writing. So here's the thing, if you are a filmmaker or creator, here are 3 things that I've learned that might help you. Protect your vision, but don't isolate it. Number 1. Number 2, collaboration is not a threat, it's a multiplier. And number 3, your breakthrough may come from someone across the table or across the globe. Let's keep building together. Peace.
Dude, I got to tell you, I love this post so much because it spoke to me too. And dude, I'm 30 years in, over 30 years in the industry, but I want you to explain why you made this post and why it's so important. I mean, you did explain it, but go into it a little more.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'll just tell you, I love her, my mother, but the reality is, for the longest time, she kind of has gotten me to say, hey, don't share what you're doing out of fear that someone else is going to take it. And that's, no matter what I'm developing. And for years, that's what I've done. And you mentioned kind of this idea of me reinventing myself. Well, it's true. I mean, I had this moment where I said, there's some things that I've been trying to do in my life that I just haven't achieved. And I took, an assessment and said, what are the things that I've been doing that have kept me from getting where I want to go as quickly as possible? And this was one of the things. I was literally hiding what some people would consider my gifts, whether in my writing or any art form, whether it was my speaking and kind of, coaching, et cetera. I've been hiding that stuff out of fear that someone's going to take what I have. And I mean, it sounds crazy now, but the funny thing is, I believed this for, to your point, some 30 plus years, at least of my life, of my career, my professional life. So the problem is when you do that, if I hold on to something so tightly, if I cover it up, then no one has a chance to see it, number one. Number two, no one can actually help give into it or pour into it. So how can it grow? I'm also keeping anything from it. I'm keeping oxygen from it, if you will. It can't be fed. It can't be nurtured. Right. And I'm trying to protect something and I'm literally killing it. And so the big lesson learned there really is you can protect your vision, but don't isolate it, because other people can pour into it. And the more people pour into it, the larger it can grow. And I'd rather grow with everyone than die alone.
That's awesome, man. Like I said, that video was powerful, man. It spoke to me. So I hope you continue to put more out like that. Very inspirational.
Absolutely, bro. I appreciate that.
So following this question is going to follow that up now. What's one thing that you know now that you wish you knew 20 years ago?
Well, part of it is the collaboration thing.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think it is failure is the fastest way to growth. I wish I knew that 20 years ago. I mean, I was so scared of failing that I missed a lot of opportunities, realistically.
Yeah.
And to really just share and show who I am. I was also not just failing at, like, here's a business moment, even failing at certain relationships. I was scared that I wasn't good enough. I didn't meet, whatever somebody else's criteria or all that was. And so it just kept me from pursuing a lot of things. And so, but the reality is, failure is the greatest teacher. I mean, we've all seen the thousands of post memes, et cetera, about it now. And no one was saying this stuff back then the same way. It's like, unless you were attending a Tony Robbins kind of guru, led thing, no one's telling you these things. In fact, it was quite the opposite. What a different world we live in today, right? So now I know this. Like, I wish I knew, and I tell my kids this now. Look, I want you to fail now, and fail fast, and fail often and hard, so you learn the lessons, and so you grow quicker, and you can get to your success faster. I think I heard Gary Vee say, or someone, they talked about, like, if you knew that it took you, 20 fails to get to one win, you would fail as quickly as possible 20 times to get to your 1 point of success, if you could actually measure it out like that. But the teacher there is, I know that just by, the law of kind of like chances, eventually I'm going to win one, but I got to go through these failures first. And those failures also build you. They build your integrity. They sharpen your skills. They teach you what to look for, et cetera. So they're really, really important. And so I'm glad I've learned now, but that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say just change your perspective on failure. Don't see it as a negative, but a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Learn something. As long as you learn something from the failure, it's not a failure.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good, man. I love it. How can someone get their foot in the door writing concepts and helping the creative team? What advice would you give about that?
It depends on where you are in the process. But the first thing is, if you're talking about writing for creative teams, like in the world that we live in and in live events, et cetera, I'll just start with, if you're a complete outsider. Let's say, you are a freelancer and you are just, watching someone come in and build a show, and you see something that people are doing and you're like, oh man, that looks cool. I'd love to kind of get into that some way. Contact the people who hired you. LinkedIn's a great option. Figure out who the people are, especially if you're on a crew list. Most of us, I know we send out crew lists to say who's who, their emails, their phone numbers. Don't be afraid to reach out, because the same thing's true, is that people want to talk about themselves anyway. And most people, I still say, man, are good folks. They may be busy. And so, we all know, when kind of busy season is, but there's nothing wrong with dropping a line, being respectful. This is what I'm trying to do. I'd love to learn. I'd love to hear some concepts I have. If it comes to other more creative type things, like outside of events, and we're talking now more so whether it's TV or film or whatnot, today's the day where, it's like no decision's a bad decision. You got to jump in,
Right.
start writing, because you're up against a whole lot of other people who are writing, but start writing. And then from there, see how you can even show or share in a visual format what it is that you're writing, how you're trying to get an idea across in some way. And it's funny when you kind of, number one, accept that you are who you say you are. When you say out to the universe, I am a writer, I'm a director, whatever these things are, you start acting all those things. It's amazing how all of a sudden it seems as though people start coming into your life. But the reality is, what's happening, you've opened yourself up to having conversations with more people about it. You're becoming less fearful. And so all of a sudden people start seeing you in a different way. And so in some regards, yes, things are coming into your life, but the truth is, it's only because you've opened the door for that to happen.
Dude, thank you so much for being on the show. You gave such good advice throughout this interview, and I just thank you. I thank you for the time, man, and it was a pleasure catching back up, and I look so forward to having you on again.
Thank you, brother. I greatly appreciate it. It was an absolute pleasure. Can I do a shout out real quick? Is that okay if I do a shout out?
Of course, man.
Awesome. All right. So I'm just going to do one big shout out to my actual organization and creative team. That's ETA, Creative Event Producers. And that's just because they continue to help me build and grow who I am, and they support me in everything that I do. So, just so everyone's aware, that's where I'm at, kind of my normal day job. Besides that, you'll see me, in front of the camera at Bruce ATL on Instagram. It's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you.
Awesome, bro. We'll catch up soon, and we'll have you on again for sure.
That sounds awesome. I look forward to it.
Big thanks to Bruce Lankford for pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to craft an unforgettable live experience. His insights on writing, designing, and leading creative teams are a true masterclass for anyone working behind the scenes. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a conversation that inspires and informs. We'll see you on the next episode of MediaHub.